So welcome to our first leadership huddle of 2021. And today, as you can see, we have the Scouts leaders joining us. We thought it'd be a great idea because we're planning on doing Scout Sunday in early February. More of that to come. So we have Andrew Jones with us, and he's the leader of the boys, which is 282. I've got that figured out. 282. And Joe Whitaker of the girls, which is 6282. And I'll just turn it over to them. Is Joel or who's going to go first? Joel, Andrew?
We haven't talked about it. We need to Farkle.
Yeah, I know. I'm flexible, Andrew. I mean, whatever you. I'm gonna brag and probably tear up a couple times. So if you want to go first, that's fine.
Okay, I'll go first. Anyway, I want to first of all make an introduction of myself.
Yes.
Because, so again, my name's Andrew Jones. I'm the Scoutmaster of Troop 282, I'm an Eagle Scout. So I grew up as a Scout. I was a part of Troop 59, which is I think it's now 359. It used to be out of Colonial Presbyterian Church on Bannister, but now I think it's migrated to their Quivira campus. Either way, it was a fairly large troop. I went through scouting in the late 80s, which makes me about 27 years old right now. So that's good. But anyway, so scouting has been a lifelong, and I don't want to tear up either because it's been a very important thing to me. My father's an Eagle Scout. Just as from personal experience, growing up, my grandfather was not an Eagle Scout, but he was of the generation where, I was going to be an Eagle Scout or I would have hell to pay. Like, it was clear to me growing up. And that's one of my really endearing memories of my relationship with my grandfather was he put it upon himself to make sure that I went through the scouting program. And I enjoyed the scouting program, but every kid, as Joel can attest to having kids, at least I can attest to having kids, every kid needs that adult in their life. Usually it's a parent, not always. Sometimes it's a grandparent who will just kind of put the screws to the kid and say, you may want to not do this, but you're going to do it. And I can attest that is something I owe a lifelong debt of gratitude to my grandfather, and I won't tear up, I promise. But so to me, it's a generational experience. I have memories from my days at Troop 59 of going to camp, of being dressed down by my scout leaders. I mean, I remember on occasion I had to be talked to pretty sternly by my scout leaders for just things kids do. And so just kind of speaking out of turn, that sort of thing. Like, I just remember I'm a believer in the Scout program. So I tell this I try to tell this to the families as they join the troop. Say, I believe in Scouts. I believe in Scouts because it worked for me to some degree. It takes the kid from the age of roughly 11 years old, at least from the Boy Scout perspective. I'm not talking about Cub Scouts, which is a different thing. It's not different, but it's part of the continuum. But I'm going Boy Scouts here and, the BSA program. Roughly 11 years old, sometimes 10. You go from that, I think, from fifth grade, and you're taking a kid from the age of 11, which is a different deal than a kid who's 16, 17, and that's where they usually end up in the program when they become Eagles. So there's a wide variety of maturity levels, of understandings, of experiences. You have kids who have haven't even looked at puberty, and your kids way through puberty. So you're looking at a whole variety of kids in the same room when we're in a room, when we're not in COVID. And so there are challenges with that, but there's some great benefits of that as well. So I think I'll just dive in a little bit here. I think I wanted to get a little perspective too. I was kind of doing some math on this. I don't have slides for this, but I was doing some math. One of the remarkable things about Troop 282, and I'll put a 6282. Again, I think some of this is vernacular when we're talking about the numbers, but when the scouting program at Leawood Methodist Church is, if my math is correct, 62 years old. The Troop 282 was founded in 1958. I think there's some controversy if you talk to Dave Anderson, who may be on this call, as to when it was actually founded. But we'll say 1958. I think some people say September of 58, and some people say like February 59. I'm going to say 58. It's 62 years old. Either way, Boy Scouts, Scouts BSA, was founded in the United States on February 8th of 1910. So that's 110 years ago, almost. We celebrate that every year in Cub Scouts, at least the Blue and Gold Banquet, which is the anniversary of Scouting's, birth or whatever. So doing the math, Troop 282 and Leawood Methodist Church have been involved with Scouting for more than half of the entire existence of Scouting in the United States, which is remarkable to me. And I just was thinking about that today. Honestly, I had not even had that thought until I was kind of going through the numbers. So if you look at Scouting before Troop 282, you're looking at what, 48 years, right? 1910 to 1958. And you're looking at Scouts after Leawood Methodist was involved with Scouting, you're looking at 62. So the bulk of the entire time Scouting's been existing in this country, Leawood Methodist has been right there, which is remarkable. And I might even say this is a fact that I have nothing to establish, but I would not be surprised if Troop 282 is the oldest troop in Leawood, if not one of the oldest troops in our region. I'm trying to think what other troops would have been around prior to that. Maybe Leawood Methodist, Leawood Presbyterian was around that time. I don't know who would have sponsored a troop in Leawood before Leawood Methodist. So I'm just wanting to lay a bunch of praise and thanks to the church for what the church has done for generations of young men and now young women, which is remarkable. You look at the years that have gone by, you have men and women, as we are speak now, who are young men, men with families, men with careers, men with grown men, and men that are grandparents. You're talking about the original Scouts who would have been in the troop in 1958 or 59 would now be, let's do the math, between 75 and 80 years old. You're looking at potential ages there. So the scope of influence, and I don't want to tear up here either, is dramatic. So it's remarkable. And these individuals have no doubt scattered throughout the United States. They're not all sitting in Old Leawood still, but there are people who are, had wonderful careers, are now retired, and have, a room full of grandchildren sitting in California someplace who would look back at Troop 282 in Leawood as one of the formative experiences of their lives, 60 some odd years ago. So this is a big deal that this church has been a part of for a long time. And we as Scout leaders can't do this without you. I mean, we can't, the troop has to have a sponsor organization. We can't, the way it exists, we can't exist on our own. So it's entirely because of what the commitment that the church has made to young people and to Scouts in particular that has allowed this to happen. And we can never say thank you enough. So I just wanted to kind of give a little perspective on that, which kind of blew my mind. And so I kind of slide into this. As a matter of fact, I knew Troop 282 Scouts when I was a Scout. I was not in the Troop 282, but I was thinking back. I went to at least 2 Eagle Courts of Honors of friends of mine who are 282 Scouts. A kid named Brian Russell, who's in Florida now. Another kid named Ben Hodge, who's local. You might have heard of him. He's actually a local politician, but they were friends of mine at one point in time or another. And so anyway, I think I've made that point, but I thought I would just dive in, and I don't want to kind of overlap what Joel would be talking about as well. I think there might be some overlap here, so forgive me for that. But I wanted to just kind of go through the range of experiences that Scouts have in the program. So you take a Scout who's, again, 11 years old. They're usually about, I have an 8-year-old son I have 3 children. My oldest is 15, on the verge of 16. And he's almost an Eagle Scout. I say almost, he's not an Eagle Scout. We actually are an Eagle Scout, but he's very nearly an Eagle Scout. And so he's very close to finishing finishing that. My youngest is 8 years old. you take the 11-year-old scouts who come into our program, they look like they're just teeny. They're just itty bitty little things. They're adorable. You just want to pick them up and hug them, but you can't because it's against all the rules, and they never do that. But I mean, as a parent, you're looking at these little guys, and you're like, oh, melt my heart, but they're just little itty bitty little things. And they're walking into a room with a bunch of with a number of older kids. You have kids up at 16, 17 years old, and they're, louder, and their voices are deeper, and there's a lot of intimidation there. Sometimes it can be very difficult. I think for our younger scouts, we try to kind of run a bit of a separate program with the younger scouts. For that reason, for the past 3 or 4 years, something that prior Scoutmaster kind of started, Michael Wagner, we call Trail to First Class. And that takes us into the Scout rankings, but we kind of put them into a little separate group so that they are a little sheltered from the entire group, because sometimes it can be a little intimidating, and we don't want them to be too scared in terms of that. And then we kind of integrate them into the whole program. We don't, so we take those younger scouts, and they're in their own patrol. So Scouts is organized in what we call the patrol method. So each scout is in their own patrol. So there's little subdivisions, and many of you know this, of the troop that they kind of identify with, and they camp with, and they cook it. And when they're camping, they cook with, and they plan events with. And it's a method of reporting. It's a method of leadership. So there's leadership that's provided within the patrol. There's leadership that's provided within the troop that's made up of the patrols. So we kind of separate the first year scouts in their own patrol for a period of 4 or 5 months until we kind of then kind of scatter them into the existing patrols in the late spring. It's worked pretty well for us for a while. I really do make an effort for especially these younger scouts when we're meeting in person, to kind of allow them to have a little bit of space, because like I said, they kind of come in at a very tender age, at least in my experience. Then they come in with and we put them right on the ground running. So there's, let's see, there's 5 ranks. There's 4 ranks of scouts that kind of form what we call Trail to First Class. And this is a period of about 2 years, usually, of a scout's life, of their scouting career, where they're essentially soaking up information. And a lot of it is things you would expect that they would soak up. They're initially learn the scout oath and the scout law. And I think, having grown up a scout, I'll never forget the scout oath and scout law. I mean, it's just one of these things I could recite it right now, but you repeat that enough, you get that ingrained. You're learning safety. You're learning a number of knots. You are displaying understanding of first aid. There's certain hiking requirements. There are cooking requirements that have to happen on campouts. These are, I don't want to say they're check the box, but these are requirements that the scout can, well, we call it the EDGE method, but basically they develop proficiency with a certain skill until they can display it to another scout or an adult leader, an older scout or an adult leader, at which point in time they get their book marked off. And this is great. I mean, everybody, especially younger scouts, I mean, who doesn't love, to have things marked off? So you get this book. This is my son's scout book right here. You get this book, and they get to go into this thing. They get to go into the pages. They get to have these initials things. And then then at the end of a period of 4 or 5 months, they get to have a court of honor, which is a ceremony where they get to stand up in front of the church, usually it's in the sanctuary at the church. And I'm speaking all this as if COVID's not happening, but obviously we don't do that now. But let's pretend for a moment COVID's not happening. So we stand in front of the sanctuary of the church. There's parents out there. Their parents get to stand up behind them. They get a badge. They get merit badges. They're awarded all this. Their names said out loud 3 or 4 times. I mean, how great. You're 11 years old. Suddenly you're standing in front of a church. Your parents are behind you. People are clapping for you. It's wonderful. And all because and I'm not trying to diminish this, but you've displayed some knots. You've recited some things. I mean, this is heady stuff. It's really great. So that's kind of the fuel that gets them going in the program in terms of, there's rewards. I mean, you don't do this for nothing. And so you're learning these things. And that goes on for about 2 years. There are camping requirements that go in that. Our troop camps as 6282 does. We camp every month. I say we camp every month. I've hated COVID. I've hated it. So there's a number of things that we can't do the way we want to do it now. So again, I'm just going to pretend it's not happening right now as we're on the Zoom. But so we camp, we go to fun places. They get to show leadership on the campouts. They get to, kind of learn things the hard way sometimes. They get to make mistakes on the campouts. If, again, I was mentioning patrols, they cook within their patrols, and oftentimes meals fail. I don't say oftentimes, but sometimes I do. So they'll have what's called a grub master who's in charge of a meal. That grub master with that patrol will plan a meal. Let's say it's hamburgers. Sometimes those hamburgers will fall in the campfire and they're gone. And you just learn from these things. And not a one of our scouts has ever starved as far as I can tell. Now, I mean, have they eaten some food that wasn't very good? I know they have. Have they eaten some food that's really good? Yes, they have. And that's because they've learned from those, from other experiences. So again, there's it's kind of a laboratory in a lot of ways there. So that's the first 2 years of the program. In rough terms, that's through first class. Once the kid gets to first class, they're roughly, I'm going to say, they're on the cusp of 13 most of the time. They're somewhere late 12-ish, sometimes early 13s. So they start in 5th grade. They're going to be at the end of this program, at the end of the first class. They're around 7th grade. They're going to hit STAR, which is the first rank that is to earn that rank, you have to show leadership. So STAR, Life, and Eagle are the 3 ranks after first class. And for each one of those ranks, the scout, in order to earn the rank, has to display leadership. They have to have a leadership role within the troop that's assigned by the scoutmaster. And I'm speaking exactly the way Joel's troop runs as well. This is not different. So I'm sorry if I'm stepping on anything here, but so those kids, once you reach your, I'm going to say 13, first of all, when you're 13, you're a different kid than when you're 11. Whether you're a boy or a girl, you've matured. You're not the same. I mean, your experiences aren't different. You've learned a thing or two. I've seen this with my own kids, but you're not an expert by any means. I mean, but you're different. So you're a little taller. You figured a few things out. So at that point in time, it's their job to provide leadership to the troop. We tell each of our senior patrol leaders when they become senior patrol leader, which is senior patrol leaders, the highest scout leadership position in the troop, as you might expect. We tell, which is true, when the senior patrol leader is installed, this is your troop. And so it's the senior patrol leader's job, essentially, in connection with the scoutmaster and the assistant scoutmasters, to implement the program with for the troop, which, as I digress, can be kind of messy. So if you ever walk into one of our troop meetings, and some of you I heard earlier having had scouts, and maybe you as parents, were able to walk down in the, fellowship hall and see what's actually going on, you might look at it and go like, oh my gosh, this is chaotic. And sometimes it is. And sometimes and I mean, say oftentimes it is. I mean, and I had to kind of get used to that, because I mean, if you're gonna let kids do things, and I mean, as a parent, I've learned this myself. If you're gonna let your kid vacuum the house, sometimes you're like, you're missing spots. And you can either you can let it happen and be like, okay, you've learned something, or you can step in and do it yourself and the kid doesn't learn anything. Anyway, again, this is not, that's kind of how Scouts is. If you're going to let the kids kind of learn to run some things, you're going to have to let them make some messes and do things ways that you might be like, there's better ways to do it, but that's where you kind of follow up with the leadership of the troop and say, hey, what we learned from this, and what went well, what didn't go well, well, they didn't pay any attention to me. Well, why didn't they pay attention to you? You kind of, provide some opportunities for them to learn, from those experiences. So that's what happens when you reach STAR. That's from STAR, Life, and Eagle. You're looking back, and you are giving back to the younger scouts in the troop. You're teaching them how to do the skills that they're learning to get the ranks that they're going through to first class. That's kind of in a nutshell how the program is structured. I don't know of many. I mean, I can't tell you of other youth programs that run like that. I think it's fairly unique. I think sports are great. My daughter loves volleyball. It's her thing. She just loves it. She's on club teams. But I mean, her coaches are her coaches, and I mean, I know there's older, and there actually aren't any older girls on our team. It's all 13-year-olds, but that's it's a different experience. Scouts isn't like that. Scouts, there is adult leadership because there has to be, and adult leadership is very important. But when it's done right, the real leadership's being implemented through the troop itself, through the scouts, and it filters down, if that makes any sense. It's a process. And I mean, as Scoutmaster, it's been harder. I can just tell you, it's been much, much harder to make this whole thing work in the way it should through COVID. And we're talking about ways to kind of, hopefully as we get towards the spring and we can start to do some more things outside. But the hard part has been not really being out, it's been colder. So not that we can't do things that are cold, but like we really enjoyed the fall when we could have, park-like experiences and we could be outside for that. So we've kind of missed some of these things when we're indoors, or when we've had to do more Zoom sort of meetings. That's how it works. So you filter the program through the older scouts to the younger scouts. And it's kind of remarkable. And I think Joel can attest to this. I mean, Joel has son Nathan, who's a wonderful young man who's now he's 18. He can't be
almost
18.
Not quite. Another month.
Tell me he's not. He can't be.
He is.
Because I remember Joel. I remember Nathan. I mean, I've been in the troop for almost 6 years. Joel's been longer than me. I'm talking about 282. So Joel's son went through the boys program, of course. But I mean, I remember Nathan. He was probably 12, and Joel's son is a perfect example. I'm going to just brag on him, and it sounds like I'm not bragging on him for a minute, but I am bragging on him because he was senior patrol leader 3 years ago. Let's say 3 years ago. Yeah. And so it's 2 or 3 years ago, he was senior patrol leader, and he was elected by the troop to be senior patrol leader. He was a quieter kid. He was just quieter, and that's the way kids are. And I'm going to say there were discussions among some of the adult leaders like, well, I wonder how Nathan's going to step up and do this. Nathan was one of the rock star senior patrol leaders we've had. Like, he was awesome. I think he was senior patrol leader right before I became Scoutmaster.
That's right.
I think, and so I was kind of I was pretty involved with things at that point in time when the last semester, my memory is foggy, but I'm pretty sure it was the last semester before I stepped into the role that Michael had. So, and I was kind of I was running things a lot at that time. So I'm telling you, Nathan, the program matured him. Okay. I mean, he was good parenting and all this other stuff, and no doubt, but like, the experience of scouting, you take a kid like Nathan, who's kind of quiet, we have quiet people and it's totally fine. But his leadership was integral. He had an amazing run as an SPL. And you wouldn't have picked him. I mean, I'm just going to be honest. Like, you wouldn't have looked at him on the outside like, oh yeah, he's your natural senior patrol leader guy. We had other scouts who were louder, who were bigger, more athletic, more whatever, but who had been, I mean, I say the more natural picks, but he was amazing. He filled the shoes like few have filled the shoes as SPL that I've seen in the troop. So that's kind of how the program works. And again, Nathan came into the program as an 11-year-old kid who, hardly could probably tie his shoes, maybe. So, and my kid was the same way. I mean, I'm not, so that I'm actually bragging on Nathan because he's an incredibly wonderful young man. That's kind of, I mean, I don't want to bore you with the details, but that's kind of how the program works. And it's just like nothing. It's like no youth program that I know of for that reason.
Yes. By giving those children, young men and women, the chance to be leaders. I mean, I'm also a band director. That's my other job. And I mean, they have opportunities once they get to high school, but I think it'd be hard for a band director to give total control over to students. But so yes, Boy Scouts scouting is very unique. So should we pass it off to Joel for a bit?
Thank you for listening.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then after Joel talks, maybe, and depending on time, and I don't know where Joel's is going to lead.
I can go quick. It's fine.
But no, I was just thinking kind of just after you do your bragging on the girls, if you guys can just share some tips and stuff that you've done during this COVID time, because you brought it up a few times, but.
That's kind of an integral part of the end of the discussion I'm going to have today. So let me start with two things that are very important. One is the program for girls is exactly, not one iota different from the boy program. 100% exactly the same. That's one. Two is, and I said this before, but now you're here, Howard, so you can hear it too, and some of the rest of you. I'm an extraordinarily lucky person because I got to go through with my son in the boy program and then had the opportunity to lead the girl troop and learned so much from Andrew and Michael and Kirby Ball and some of those other people and other adults, honestly, there's a whole bunch of them that cared so much about that troop and worked so hard to make it like it is today that it just naturally formed into the troop I have today. So it would not have happened if I hadn't had those experiences. So thank you, Andrew. I really appreciate it. What I want to do, I think, is kind of spend a minute or two on the overall program and then talk a little bit about how the girls got together. So I'm going to go ahead and show pictures. I'm sorry that I have to do that.
Yes, I think I gave you sharing rights, correct?
Yeah, I see it. I just got to make sure I do it right. Share. Okay. I'm going to optimize. No, I'll just share it. I'm not going to have any video. And I'm sharing, hopefully this right screen. Maybe I'm not. What am I sharing? Nothing. That's not it. Wrong one. Sorry. You'd think I'd know how to do this because I do it all day, every day at work. There. I want that one. Let me know when you can see my picture of the initial scouting thing. You should be able to.
You can see it. Yep.
Okay. All right. So you'll see there's basically 4 pieces of scouting, right? So the first one is Cub Scouts, K through 5. Scouts BSA used to be called Boy Scouts, 11 to 17, venturing and Sea Scouting, which a lot of people don't know about. Back in, I think it was 2018 is when they started letting girls into Cub Scouts. And that was the initial, ooh, this is really cool. This is going to happen kind of a thing. My girl, unfortunately, was too old. She was already too old to be in Cub Scouting. So she missed that experience, but I'll show you in a minute where she got to participate some. In Scouts BSA, admitted girls as of February 1st of 2019. And I was extraordinarily honored and excited to be asked to be the Scoutmaster for the girl troop. We registered the very first day we could. I was there with bells on, February 1st, 2019. We started off with 10 girls, as I recall. It came from a core set of girls that had expressed interest in scouting, but they were just a little bit too young. So what we had to do was go through something called the Arrow of Light program, which is a kind of a overall program on steroids. And I got an interesting story to tell you about that in a second. Then there's venturing and Sea Scouts, which are older kids. They've been co-ed since the beginning of time. So venturing is more leadership and going and doing cool things together. It's not so rank focused. They don't really have merit badges, that kind of thing. Sea Scouting is very much into scouts in the ocean. Matter of fact, to get your Eagle in a Sea Scout, you actually take kids on a ship, a boat, and you're out at sea for 3 days, and you're the captain of the ship. That's how you get your, what they call it, quartermaster. Yeah, exactly. I'm like, what? Anyway, let me tell you just a quick story about the girls. So early on, I was teaching the girls how to use a pocket knife, right? So a pocket knife is a very, very important piece of equipment for scouts. And there's a whole bunch of different rules and stuff like that. And I told the girls, I said, you're going to get what's called your whittling chip now, which means you can have a knife and use it with an adult around. I said, but you know what's going to happen? Pretty soon, I'm going to teach you how to use a saw and an axe, and I'm going to teach you more things about a knife, and you're going to get what's called your totem chip. When you have that, you can use a knife anywhere you want, anytime you want. And they're like, what? Really? They had just never, a lot of these girls had never been exposed to that kind of capability in the past. It was the initial wake up call for me that this is going to be really fun, right? So anyway, so as I said, the girl troop, we call ourselves 282. We're technically 6282. We liberally stole the wagon wheel, the wagon sign that the boy troop has. You guys can see this picture okay, right? Okay, cool. So ours is just a tad bit different, but we do a lot of the same things that the boys do. We have what's called the Class B. So this is my Class A. This is my, field uniform, they call it. We have what's called the Class B uniform. It's all the same color. Ours is blue. That way, if I see somebody way off in the distance and they have a blue shirt, I know it's one of my scouts, and I need to go over there and see what's going on. If they've got a pink shirt on or a green shirt on, I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll let somebody else do it. So we formed, as I said, on 2/1 of 19 with the initial group of 10. This past recharter, we've actually doubled in size. We now have 20 girls in the troop, and I'm very proud of that. I don't necessarily want to get to be as big as the boy troop quickly. I'd like to continue to slowly grow, but I'd like to get to about 35 or 40 girls I don't know if I'll get that done before my time is up, but we'll see. That's kind of where I'm hoping. So this is one of the things that the girls did when they were still Cubs. We went out to Shawnee Mission Park, and I think it was January of 19 or December of 18. I don't remember. It had snowed, and we had a hike. We went out there and hiked, and the girls loved it. We had a great time. We went up to one of the shelters out at Shawnee Mission Park. We made some lunch. And we did our hike in the snow, and they were all dressed for it, and they all did a great job. That's my daughter there, the one in the kind of the blue coat on the right-hand side. And I want to echo something, but I'll give a little shout out to the girls. You do see the same difference in girls that are 11 and girls that are 18, okay? But what I'll tell you right off the bat is a lot of the problems that Andrew has, I don't have, because girls that are 11 and 12 are already significantly more mature than boys at the same age, right? I mean, I noticed that right away too. I can say, please go do this, and they go do it, right? They get a little slippery sometimes, as they call scouts, but a lot of that, excuse my language, but a lot of the grab, you know what, the boys do, girls don't do that. Now, there's other problems I have to deal with, which I'll talk about in a minute, but it's just a different world. Anyway, so they had a great time on that hike. This is another example. We had gotten back from a merit badge forum. I took my senior patrol leader group, they call it the PLC, and I got them a table by themselves. I said, girls, go plan something. I forget what I even told them. And here they are. They're off talking. This is where I started to get choked up, sorry. And they're doing their thing. And Andrew has the same thing happen with his boys, right? You just get them together, give them a task, and cut them loose. And I'm here to help if they fail, but they typically don't, and they do just fine. And, you know, I've been so impressed with these girls, and they've done such a great job at it. First camp out, I taught them how to make lean-tos and shelters, taught them the knots, and they just did it, right, which was awesome. This was at Shawnee Mission Park. We actually went and camped there. Went on a hike. I'm going to tell you a little bit of an indelicate story because I think it's kind of funny. So Shawnee Mission Park scout camp areas don't have any toilets. There's no bathroom. There's a porta potty way down the road, but it's way down the road. When we got there for our camp out, the porta potty was, let's just say, unusable. I'm not sure why. So we have something in the girl troop, and I think the boys troop does it today, where you can earn a yellow bead. You only earn it once. And what do you think the yellow bead's for? Can you guess?
Something related to porta potties or not porta potties.
No, it's for peeing in the woods.
Okay.
So boys do it all the time, right? Boys don't care.
Yes.
You know, it's not a problem. For girls, it's a little different, but I was shocked. Every single one of these girls was excited. So girls, when you pee in the woods, you get a yellow bead. They're like, really? Let's go. And they would just talk. And I just was like, wow, this is insane. There's also a brown bead, a little bit harder to get, but I don't have to explain what that's for. Okay. So went to a camp out. As you recall, in April of 2019, I believe it was, we had a reunion camp out where we brought all the people who had been part of the troop in the past. Andrew, you remember that?
That was a great camp out. Yes.
That was awesome. Up at Hillside.
Was that 19? Yeah, it was. Yeah. It was
April
November 19th.
It was our second camp out.
That was a super camp out.
Yeah, it was our second camp out. Yep. And so the girls, we were still kind of figuring out how the boys and girls would camp at the same time. So the boys had this one big area and the girls were off over a hill. And they got together that night and had a campfire together and told stories together and did the Addams Family together. I don't know if you remember that, Andrew, but the girls had a great time. It was an amazing experience for them to be able to be around all those boys and learn from them. It was really cool. One thing that we do, I'm going to kind of jump in real quick, is we do various types of fundraising. So we did a car wash. This was actually before COVID, as you can tell, because they don't have any masks on. We did another one with COVID, actually, I think it was September. I did send you a check, Howard. Hopefully you got your tithe. I hope you got that. We also did a pancake breakfast, which was awesome. We made a lot of money. The boys need to think about doing a pancake breakfast because that was serious cash. So boys do obviously the wreaths, which the girls do as well. Then there's obviously the tree lot, which, you know, we'll talk more about that later. But just they're really into trying to pay their own way, and it really works well. And we'll tell you about Scouts at Work. So one of the important things about our Scouts as well as the boys is I want them to give back. I want to make every single rank that Andrew was talking about requires a certain amount of community service. Even the first ones, Tenderfoot and second class, you have to spend some hours in some kind of community service. And I tell the ladies, we're doing that because it needs to be part of what you are when you get older and grow up. And they go like, well, okay, I get it. So the girls, for example, one of our girls has type 1 diabetes, and they have what's called the JDRF, which is the Juvenile Diabetes Research Fund, I think it's what it's called. They do a walk every year, and it starts and ends up at Liberty Memorial. Well, they asked our troop to come and do the flag ceremony. Sorry, I'm doing it again. I get very excited about this stuff. Anyway,
that's really
our
cool.
girls killed it. They got to do the flag ceremony. There's like hundreds of people, and it's just, it's amazing. But that's an example of what they can do to give back to the community. This is a very important thing that Andrew talked about a little bit ago. You see this lady in the pink that's kind of sitting there with her hands like this? Well, that's one of the moms. She was used to always doing stuff for her scouts and her kids. And they were making lunch one of the first days. And I said, what are you doing? She's like, I'm making lunch. I said, no, you're not. Sit down. Let the scouts do it. So she wanted to make sure we got a picture of her kind of kicking back and the scouts doing all the work. That's how it works. I will tell you that most recently, it was the last camp out we did back in November, whatever it was. We're to the point, and Andrew gets to do this now. It took me a little bit to get there, where when we go on a camp out, I don't have to do anything. The scouts know what to do. The SPL knows what to do. I just kind of show up and set my own tent up and kind of go take a nap, and it just all happens. It's magic. It's the coolest thing I've ever seen. Coolest thing ever. This is a couple of years ago where they do haunted trails out at Camp Nash. We've actually done this twice now. We did it before COVID, where we took some of our girls, took everybody on the trails out there. It's really fun, by the way, if you've never done it. We did it again this last time when they had the drive-through part. I'll show you a picture of that in a minute. But this is where I want the girls to learn leadership, giving back, and also, and this is important for recruitment, all of these people saw these young girls doing this leadership. So if they see not only young girls or young men that are out there leading this kind of thing, maybe they can say, maybe I want my kid to start doing that. So I think this is a really key component for the potential of getting, maybe the youth group could do the same thing, right? This is them helping clean out the back of the church one time. There's little David Anderson hard at work. This is a trail that they helped mulch out at the zoo when they did the zoo camp out. This is part of the Eagle Project my son did years ago to clear a trail. So those are the kinds of things they get to do. This was from the drive-through version that they just had, and we just set up a whole bunch of scary stuff and had the girls all dress up and scare people as they drove by. So that's the kind of stuff that I want not only other people in Scouts, but other just civilians to see, is the Scouts out there doing cool stuff. Anyway, this is a girl. She cooked her first lunch on the cast and using cast iron. Amazing stuff. It actually turned out really good. Okay, so that's the kind of thing they do. They also get to have fun. So this is actually at Fort Scott. We went down there and camped on some property down there, and they got to go to Fort Scott, and they got a tour from a great guy who told them all kinds of cool stuff. This is the kind of stuff that our Scouts get to do, and that Andrew Jones' group gets to do as well. We got to go kayaking down at Living Waters. I know, Andrew, I know you guys do that from time to time. Great fun. That section of the Niagara River is very controlled. There's not a bunch of people doing things they shouldn't be doing in that part, right? So it's very, very fitting for Scouts and church groups. Highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. They're doing the work. Got their book out, making sure they know how to do it. And this is what they built. This was for a camporee a couple of years ago. So they did that. I didn't do that. They did that. And I love that. We got to go to Nefertari last year when it was still no COVID. So this was very important to me because, Queen Nefertari was, she knew what she was doing, right? I mean, she was on the ball. So we got to go to that. We got a docent-led tour. The lady off to the right is a docent who knows one of my assistant scoutmasters. Had a great time. The girls really enjoyed it. They got to see what the original tomb looked like. Really cool to show them what strong women can do. We got to do the Yukon, they call it. There's a sled that's about 8 feet long. It's got skis on the bottom. I don't know if you can see that. What you do is you slide it all over and do all these different events, but you have to take your sled with you. So you go do this and go do that and go do the other thing. One of the things they had to do was go over a wall that's about 4 foot high. So they had to get themselves and the sled over the wall. They couldn't go around. No, you got to go over. So again, hands in my pockets, let them go do their thing. And they figured it out. It was very impressive. Plus they got really super muddy, as you can see from their shoes. Great fun. They still talk about that Yukon. Now here's Bartle, which is near and dear to my heart. and near and dear to Andrew's as well. The first year, pretty much every single one of my girls went, and we had a fantastic time. When they go down to Bartle, they build their own camp box. This is Amy, one of my stars, and they make their own camp box. This is all the girls with their camp boxes when we're just about to get on the truck and hit it. They get to throw tomahawks, for example. They get to shoot rifles. They get to shoot black powder guns. They get to do crate stacking. So one of my girls actually got up. I can't remember how many that is. It's like 14. I think she fell right after this. They have them carabine, so it's okay. But what you do is you stack it and you climb on top of it. It's really fun. It's also very hard, especially for somebody like me who's kind of fat. But anyway, she went up like a squirrel. It was amazing. All our girls were able to earn their swimming badge where you're allowed to go swim. Excellent stuff. This is where you go eat. Unfortunately, this last year we got to go to Bartle. Only 4 girls went with me, and we didn't get that whole experience. Andrew can tell you too that the mess hall is probably the best part of the experience at Bartle because you're rowdy, you have fun. The food's okay depending on what year you go, but anyway, the girls had a great time with this. This is called the Point. That's a hike that you take out to overlook the lake. There's also some Mikase stuff. We'll talk about that in a minute, but this is an example of where girls get to go out and do cool stuff together. They get to rappel, right? So that's one of the things they get to do is climb walls and rappel. They also get to do a pole climb, like the guys who get up on the utility poles. This girl went all the way to the top of the pole, looped over the thing, and came back down. So she went up probably 40 feet, 50 feet maybe. Pretty impressive. Each scout troop gets a rock out there at Camp Bartle, and we got to pick a rock and paint it, and all the girls participated on it together. And our rock is out there at PA, Piercing Arrow, which is where our camp has been the last couple of years. Now, what about the dreaded COVID, right? And this is the interesting part that I think we're all having to deal with. So this is our summer shirt. What we did last year was we split our group into 2. There were some parents who just really didn't want to send their kids to a big camp, and we got that. So what we did was we took some of the girls whose parents were concerned and sent them to Fort Scott and that farmland, and they had Camp Fartle, fake Bartle. And they did some of the same things that we would do at our camp, but it was much smaller. It was only 5 or 6 kids, and they did archery, and I think they went shooting and a couple of other things. But they tried to have that same summer camp experience, but they had it at somebody else's farm. And I thought that worked really well. I'm hoping we don't have to do that again. Because I will say to you, Andrew, if you're concerned about this, if they do Bartle the same way they did it last year, this year, perfectly safe. You should have 0 concerns, and so should nobody in the troop. But we'll talk about that more together later. So what do we have to do? Well, you got to wear a mask, right? You have to wear a mask. This is a hike we did, like I can't remember when it was, maybe April or May last year. Everybody masked up, and we went on a hike. It worked just fine. Here's the hike. Here's the girls at Bartle. They have their masks on. They're showing their blue bands for getting their swimming capability, but everybody's got a mask on, as you can see, all the people in the background. Okay. This is girls at the camp. Again, everybody's got their mask up, that kind of thing. Now, this is a cool thing that I want to talk about with respect to the girls and the younger ones, because this is the same thing that Andrew gets to do. I took my girls, 2 or 3 of them, to a We Below's Den meeting, and they were going to learn how to cook and learn how to make fires. Took my girls over there. The den leader, the mother of one of the girls, was going to do all the work. And I said, no. Go sit down, let the girls do it. She did that. And she freaked out when she saw that Ava, that's my daughter, and the other girl, Ansley, took the little girls and taught them how to make fires and taught them how to cook. And we didn't have to do anything. I sat there and looked at my phone and kind of talked and stuff. We didn't have anything to do because the girls were doing the work, which is exactly how it's supposed to go, especially with the younger ones, especially with the little ones. This is exactly what's supposed to happen. And because the girls were so cool and nice to these girls, all of the Webelos joined us, all of them. So that's a perfect example of where showing that capability of leadership and taking charge and being able to be nice to these little kids can bring more people into the fold. And so we need to keep working on it. There's another camp out. We just went on a hike. This was out at the lake, the Clinton Lake down there by Lawrence, right? Same deal. Everybody wears masks. We also camped separately. So we had little pods of people. So you would basically camp with your parents And then you would have separate areas for each little family group. Okay, but you still had to wear masks when you were outside of your little area. And it worked. It actually worked pretty well. We had a good time. Here's a crossover of those same girls you saw a minute ago. Again, everybody's wearing masks. Again, we're doing it outside. We're doing it at a fire pit out there at Meadowbrook Park, which is a really nice park, by the way. And again, it's the girls did the work. I didn't do anything. The girls are the ones that are doing they built the fire, they dealt with all of it. Here's another hike we did just a few weeks ago, again at Shawnee Mission Park. They found these crazy Sasquatch shelters. That's what I told the girls they were. And then here's another crossover of another girl. This girl here in the middle there with the Webelos cap on joined us as well. She's number 20. This is another example of where the girls are able to not only give back but lead at the same time. This was at the Wreaths Across America. I think I talked about that early on with you guys. We did it again this year, and there was a group of daisies that showed up. And what I got the mom away from the daisies and said, hey, just let the older girls take care of them. They'll be fine. So what we did was we took an older girl that was a scout, and then the little girls that were daisies, and we paired them up. And they went through and laid the wreaths and did all the different things. It was pretty cute. Pretty cute. And then here they are at the very end, being together. That one teared me up pretty hard. One thing I want to talk about briefly is, I don't know if you have yours on. I'm going to stop this for a second. There are two, let's see, I don't think I can. There are two, what should I call them? Things that are advanced programs or honor programs in Scouts. The first one is national, and it's called Order of the Arrow. You guys see that? Okay. It's an honors program for camping. You have to have camped a certain number of times over a year and a half or so, and then you have to be nominated to be part of the Order of the Arrow. There's specific things you have to do to become part of OA. I can't really tell you too much about them, but if you're really curious, I can explain it. The second one is the Great Tribe of Mickasay, which is based out of Geiger and Bartle. Up until recently, Scouts that, were of a certain age could participate in that activity. Well, now that the girls are able to participate, they are now able to get into that program as well. So what I want to do briefly is talk about that, because I'm very excited to say I've got two girls that have started their trail in the Mickasay. The first step is called the Foxman, and you see the little stick that she has around her neck. Okay. That is the first step. They're not technically in the tribe yet, but that's the first step. This next summer when we go, I fully expect to have some girls take that first step into the tribe, which is to become a brave. That's going to be pretty emotional for a lot of us when that happens. Okay. We actually had girls become braves this past summer, and it was really cool to see. They went through the same program. Everything was the same. We also have quite a few girls who have joined Order of the Arrow. They were able to earn their arrows by going through what they call an ordeal. And the cool thing about the girls, which I haven't noticed so much in the boys, and maybe that's something we talk about, Andrew, is the girls are really fired up about OA. They want to be more involved. OA, I think, for the boy troop has been a little less important. But the girls are like, oh, I want to do some more of this kind of stuff. So that's also Nikki Hodap, the lady there. She's one of my assistant scoutmasters. She's the most amazing person I think I've ever met in my life. She's been in Scouts since God was a child. And she has done so many different things, and she's such a huge benefit to me. I'm so glad she's on the team. It's been a great thing. Let me see if there's anything that I want to talk about that I forgot. Yeah, the only other thing I'll say that I've seen that has kind of gone away that's been a little bit of an issue for me is the fact that I do have some cliques that occur, especially the younger ones. As they get a little bit older, they stop it. But the little ones, the first ones that come over, they're kind of like they get in little groups. And it hasn't really been a huge issue for me, but it's something that I've had to watch out for. And it happens way more than it does with boys. Boys get in a fight. There's punching and kicking and yelling, and then it's over. It's done. There's no animosity. They could hug each other 5 minutes later. Girls are a little bit different when it comes to that. So if there's weirdness, we got to kind of manage through it. Really, I think that's all I have to say right now. I'm very proud of my girls. One of my first year scouts brought this up last year. I know I scout like a girl, so try and keep up. And I thought that was a pretty awesome thing that she said. And she just started and she's that fired up. So anyway, any questions or other things we want to kind of talk about while we're together for a little bit longer?
Well, that's what I was going to see. Does anyone have any questions? I just love, I mean, my son was in Boy Scouts for a while, but I don't remember them giving them, maybe it's because he didn't get to the older Boy Scouts as much, but the fact that you give the kids, like you just put them in charge, that's just amazing experience for them to do that.
It is. And sometimes it fails, right? Andrew will be the first, I think, to admit that sometimes you give them something to do and it just doesn't happen. And we're there to keep them safe and kind of kick them back into play. But, you know, sometimes you got to jump in and help, and that's just how it is. But letting them fail, as he suggested before, is very important. Let them fail. Let them get cold. Let them get tired. Let them forget about to go get water, you know, whatever. It won't hurt them. They'll just remember next time.
But, I mean, this is exactly what we've been trying to implement more in education in general, is because you learn better by teaching.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions?
I went to Philmont with a venture crew, which was half boys, half girls. And I had, you know, a lot of experience with the boys troop previous to that. And I have to say that the combined boys and girls troop was head and shoulders above the boys troop as far as getting along, leadership, just really strong unit. And these boys and girls had really never even been together before this. There were a few boys in the troop that went together, but they actually were much more mature around the girls than they had been around the boys.
I see, yeah.
And this was 14 to, well, maybe there's a 13, I don't remember, but 14 through maybe 15, 16-year-olds. And my experience, and I was doing 100 miles with these kids through the mountains of New Mexico.
Right.
And I just cannot say how wonderful that whole experience was. And I think it was much, 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 much better than we would have had with just an all-boy troop.
Ann, did you have a question?
I have two things. One is to kind of reverse what Andrew was saying. I think that the troop being at the church has been hugely beneficial. We've had some of our own kids who now are grandparents. I've known them that long, who came up through the troop. We have neighbors, the Hilton family. I think all three Hilton boys became Eagle Scouts across the street, and they are one fine family, largely, I think, because of that. But also, so thank you guys. The pancake breakfast that girls put on was amazing. And those girls, I mean, they were on it. It was a lot of fun. But also, I want you to know that we have a prayer team at our church, and every Wednesday evening we meet, and the Scout troop is on our prayer list. We pray specifically for you. So if you ever have special requests or things that really need attention, if you would let Howard, he would share that with us, or let Stacy know, and we would be sure that we made our prayer for you very specific.
Well, I appreciate that a great deal. Maybe that's why things are going so well.
That's wonderful.
It can't hurt. It's effective.
It works. Yeah, that's great stuff. Yeah, I've been very blessed with not only the experience I've gotten from the team, but I've got 4 assistant scoutmasters now that have so much experience and knowledge. It's just fabulous. It's a great thing. So thank you for that. That's awesome.
I'm going to thank you. I have company downstairs. I'm going to go take care of them. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Much. Well, and it has been about an hour. I want to thank you guys. This has been, I learned a lot today as someone who's only been part of the church for a year. Howard, did you have something to add? I just saw you on mic.
I think it's good to say unmute. You're watching my unmute button?
I'm in control.
Yeah, I think it's always good to hear one thing I appreciate is the detail, the pictures, the putting life to some of the stuff that we know is probably going on, you know, like we're sponsoring this group, we want to be part of it, but we don't often get to see the, you know, well, this is what it was like going here, and what it was like going here, and here's why it works, and all that. Feeling like connecting us, and like we were recording this because I know there are some people who are going to want to see it again later and learn more too.
Yes.
So for me, it's about the kind of getting that insider feel for what it's like, and I appreciate that.
And I've gotten some ideas that we could do for the youth, or just the youth and the Sunday school kids together.
Yeah.
Yeah, black powder, that'll work.
Yeah, that'll get them. It smells. It's really loud. It smells bad. It's awesome. Awesome.
Absolutely.
Throwing the
That's
tomahawk
what my Uncle Gordon was for.
Yeah, throwing the tomahawk, that's a good one too.
Well, thank you guys, and please, I would love if we could, maybe this summer and spring, if we could figure out ways to collaborate together and get your girls and boys and our kids and do something too.
We can give you an assignment. We've been talking as staff and as others in the congregation. So if there is a definable post-COVID moment, which I'm not saying there is one yet, we've been kicking around ideas about how to do a serious community-wide event at the church that everybody comes to and does all sorts of stuff. And you guys would obviously be a significant part of that, but it'd be fun to start kicking around ideas about what that might look like, what kinds of things we might do. I'd like it to be something that includes people who are neighbors, immediate neighbors, but also people who are neighbors in other ways. And just to kind of create a bit of a celebration. I'm envisioning fall and praying it's fall when we can make that kind of a declaration. But that's something you guys might kick around and start thinking about with your groups.
Absolutely.
We'll do. No, that's a great idea.
Yes.
We're going to have an Easter egg hunt around a Christmas tree.